Welcome back, enthusiasts. With Season 9 looming upon us, there are countless new builds, new seasonal mechanics, and a new meta to get our teeth into. One of the most anticipated of these new meta builds is the Thorns Spiritborn, a build that I've personally championed for a couple of seasons now. With a new unique and more damage scaling, this is shaping up to be one of the best builds, if not the best build of the season, both for leveling and the endgame. Want to run around AFK killing all those demons whilst leveling? I've got you covered. We'll go through the build planner, breaking down each component, which will take you from level 1 to 60 in no time, setting you up for the endgame transition. Let's get into it. Okay guys, so I've got the build guide here. This is on Mobalytics. This is a Thorns Rock Splitter full leveling guide, designed to go from level 1 to 60 only. And at the top of the build summary, you'll see there's a link here to the endgame guide. That is a Thorns Rock Splitter endgame guide. This is S tier on our Mobalytics tier list. We think this is going to be pretty good. So if you want to play this all the way from the beginning of the season, all the way through to the end, you'll be able to do that, no problem. There are 3 variants, level 1 to 14, level 15 to 29, level 30 to 60, designed around the Spiritborn Spirit Hall breakpoints. So level 15 you'll get your first one, and level 30 you'll get your second one. So you see here, if I click the second variant, you'll get your first hall, and the second one you'll get your second hall. Each variant has their skill tree here. And at the top, it will tell you roughly how many points you should have at this point. So if you've got all your renown, you'll have 12 points. And then that would be a maximum of 26 at level 14. Now, I've only spent 25 in this tree to make sure that you can definitely spend all these. And then in level 15 to 29, you've spent 40. And level 30 to 60, you spend all of them. If you've got one spare, by all means, spend it onwards. And if you see here on the skill tree, you can see the leveling path here. So if you click the leveling path, this will show you the exact path that I said would be a good way to go as you go through each variant. Each variant has their own, and they pretty much just extend from one another. They don't require you to respec at any point. They pretty much just take the previous variant's leveling path and move on. So it should be pretty straightforward to follow. So what we'll do, guys, we'll go through the skills, and then after we've gone through the skills for all 3 variants, we'll go through the aspects, the stats, the runes, and all the rest, because they're pretty much the same for all of the variants. And just before we go into the skills, it's worth noting that if you come down below, there is a rough detailed explanation of the gameplay loop here, a small explanation of the how the build works with all the damage multipliers and a few extra details, and then the in-depth explanations are all down here below in their own sections. So leveling tips, start tips, spirit for starting your season, spirit halls, uniques, runes, heraldic powers, which are the new seasonal mechanics, aspects and where you can get them and which ones you can only drop, and the elixirs you can use, and so on. So this is all designed to be usable through a season start. We're only using magic arcanas, we're only using magic runes, we're only using aspects that you would be able to drop. The build does not require you to have any of these available to you anytime. The build will just do a lot better if you do find some of them. So don't worry if you do not find all of these. And if you happen to find any of the good uniques along the way, that's even better. You'll just blast even easier. This build is designed to be as easy as possible to follow. Okay, so going into the skill tree here, so we're just going to go into Rock Splitter here. We're going to take all 3 points coming into Accelerated Rock Splitter. This just gives us an extra bit of Thorns damage on the Rock Splitter attack every 3rd attack. So we're going to do 100% of our Thorns. So later on, once we get a Zephyr Zontek, that will mean we'll do our every single attack will be a 3rd attack. So that means the Rock Splitter will get extra Thorns damage on it regardless of what when you attack. We then come down and take 3 points into Follow Through, which gives us more multiplicative basic skill damage. And again, once we get the Zephyr Zontek, this just ends up exponentially stacking our damage, so it's another big multiplier for us. We come down, we take 3 points in Toxic Skin, coming down into Replenishing Toxic Skin. This gives us 100% Thorns, passively gives us 100% Thorns damage against poisoned enemies, which we're able to do very easily on this build once you get a Balanzan's maxed Latel pair of pants. But until then, you can just activate Toxic Skin to apply poison to enemies and you'll get an extra bunch of damage. This just, or you can get, if you're lucky enough to find a Tormentor's aspect, when enemies hit you, they're going that's going to also play into the poison. So when you've poisoned them with Toxic Skin, your Tormentor's aspect is also going to blast them as they move. So you're just going to annihilate enemies in the early game here. We then take 2 points into Ravager, coming into Enhanced Ravager. This allows it to last a bit longer. That gives you the ability to zoom around and gives you a bit of extra Jaguar attack damage here. So this helps stack up any Jaguar bonuses. We then come in and take 2 points into Enhanced Armor Hide. This gives us Thorns damage when it's active, as well as giving us Resolve passively generating, which gives you... So if you don't know, Resolve gives you extra damage reduction per stack of Resolve. And there's ways of making that gain you damage and such later on, and it plays into the Spirit Halls. We then take 2 points into Counterattack. This will later become a absolute staple of the build, because if counterattack is active, you get 100% dodge chance all the time. So later on in the endgame version of this build, we will be aiming to have that up 100% of the time, meaning you are immune to pretty much all damage except damage over time damage. Anything that's landed on the floor. And by taking enhanced counterattack, it means for every stack of ferocity we have when we use it, the cooldown is reduced by a bunch, which means it's easier to keep it active. We then take 1 point into Patient Guard. This gives us a bunch of extra block chance, as well as block damage reduction, and 3 points into Bastion, because this gives us multiplicative Thorns damage while we have a barrier active, and a bunch of base Thorns damage. This makes us blast very, very well early on, because 360 Thorns is a lot higher than you sound. This will be a little bit lower as your lower level, but as you level, that number goes up, and your Thorns base number really makes a big difference, even though it's not very high. You'd be surprised. 3 points into Resilient for more maximum life. That just gives you some more tankiness. We're always using a Gorilla skill with Thorns Rock Splitter, so we definitely take this. And then we come down and take our 3 Hunter points coming into Exalted the Hunter, which just means it gives you mobility, it gives you access to overcapping on your ferocity, it resets your ferocity, it resets itself, it makes you do more damage against injured enemies, and so on. This is just still probably going to be the best ultimate on any Spiritborn build going forward, at least for the time being. Some of the others are a bit more competitive, but that is very, very strong. So that's your first level 1 to 14 range, and you will fly through this. You will be surprised how quickly you would get through this. So moving on to level 15 to 29, we have our first Spirit Hall. So I do choose to use the Gorilla Spirit Halls for leveling, because they make the leveling process a lot smoother. Jaguar always still does win out. The primary and secondary do win out for damage in the end game, but whilst leveling, Gorilla gives you extra Thorns damage and it gives you barrier generations. It just makes the leveling curve a lot smaller, it makes it a lot safer, and it means you're less reliant on the Jaguar stacking damage multipliers and the aspects and having ferocity stacks and such when we're not using a Jaguar skill to start with. So you take your primary Gorilla, and then the extra skills we're then taking, if we look at the leveling path here, you can see that we're just going to cap the Hunter as quickly as humanly possible, and then we're going to take Potent. And the reason for this is every single point in the Hunter will reduce its own cooldown, so this means you'll be able to use it more often, especially with its self-reset. And because we're using Jaguar there, we are going to use Potent, because that, along with Ravager, means that all of our attacks are stacking up extra damage on enemies when we hit them with Jaguar skills. It doesn't matter if we're hitting with Jaguar skills as per se for the final damage. It's just the fact that every time they are hit with a Jaguar skill, it will make them take more damage from that point onwards, up to 30%. So it's 100 stacks. So that is very, very good when you can stack those up very quickly. Moving on from there, we're then going to take our key passive, Adaptive Stances. Adaptive Stances, which is down at the bottom down here, is very, very good for this build, because it gives us 30% damage reduction when we're using Rock Splitter, and because we're constantly using other Spirit Hall skills, we are going to end up getting our 75% core stats, which gives us a load of extra damage. The more dexterity we get, the more damage we'll gain from this, and the more dodge chance and such. So for this build, this is particularly good. It pretty much solves all of our defense and damage issues early on, and even into the end game as well. There are some other ideas I've got to play around with Noxious Resonance on this build later on, but for this is what I used in Season 8. I cleared a pit 100 with this on Season 8, and it actually did higher than this on Season 8. On Season 9, it will do the same or better, and honestly, with the new pit scaling, it will probably go even higher, which is why we put it at S tier. Going forward, we're pretty much going to start speccing into the ultimate tree, because this gives us a load of extra power as well. So as you can see here, we've got 1 point into resolution, 1 point in spiritual attunement, and it's mainly so we can get 3 points in supremacy, so that when we use our ultimate skill, we gain multiplicative damage. Resolution we can't really keep up often enough yet, but later on we will be able to. Spiritual Attunement doesn't really do much for this build, so Supremacy is really what we're after there. And then just for your last 2 points for this variant, we're going to take 1 point in Mirage, mainly so we can start taking points in Unrestrained Power, because we are going to be unstoppable and unhindered quite a lot with Toxic Skin and such once we get into the next variant, and this is just preempting that so we can get damage here. Okay, so then moving on to the final variant, level 30 to 60. This is where the build really starts to come online, and you should be starting to find some of your aspects at this point. So we are going to take the double gorilla, the secondary gorilla aspects here, Spirit Hall. This allows you to gain more maximum resolve and means you basically get access to permanent unstoppable even at this early stage. If you're very lucky and you're able to drop a loyalties mantle early on, you're going to be absolutely giga chad for leveling, because you're going to have double the thorns damage, double the barrier gen, and you're going to require basically no resolve stacks to be able to be unstoppable. It's going to be, that is absolutely insane for leveling, but if you don't drop one, you are still going to blast this absolutely no problem. So coming into the skill tree, instead of going down the full leveling path, which again you can see here if you click on the leveling path notch, and you can see how I've recommended to complete the board out here. This isn't designed to be a full end game build. It's designed to make it so level 30 to 60 will be nice and smooth for you. So basically what we're doing is we're just taking as many damage multipliers as we can, a lot of defensive mechanics because we haven't got the gear good enough to just solve everything here, and then a few utility bits on the side. So we've already started coming into Unrestrained Power. We finished maxing that out because, as we've said, we're already going to be permanently unstoppable. We then come in and take 1 point in focal points so that we can get 3 in Apex and 3 in Diminishment. This just gives you a load more damage against vulnerable enemies, particularly elites, and it makes you take a lot less damage from vulnerable enemies, so it's great for both damage and defense. We then come in and take 1 point in Endurance so that we can take the 3 in Perseverance. We're stacking up a whole bunch of Resolve. This is going to give us a load more just generic damage reduction. This will help us stay alive. We're then going to take the 2 points in Auspicious. That gives us just a little bit more barrier generation, even without the Loyalties Mantle tech. So that just gives you a bit more survivability there when you're running around. We take 3 points in Anti-Venom, and we get 1 in Nourishment. This is mainly because this will just help you cap poison resistance at this early stage, helping you against the main source of damage over time you would take, or one of them. And Nourishment, just so that we gain a little bit more healing here. And then we come down and we take 3 points in Dominant because we're preempting the fact that we're going to be able to knock down enemies using some of our seasonal mechanics, and later on we'll be able to do this baked in the Spiritborn class anyway. And then we come down and we finish off in our ultimate tree, and mainly we just come we've got the same as before, but we come down taking 1 point in Sustenance, which gives you a bit of life sustain when hitting enemies with your ultimate skill with Hunter, but more importantly gives you 3 points in Intricacy. And this means when you cast an ultimate skill, your last defensive or focus skill you used will gain extra charges and reset. So if you use Armored Hide and then use your Hunter, it will reset Armored Hide's cooldown and give you multiple charges in there. So if you time your skills correctly, you'll be able to keep uptime on whatever skill you're wanting to keep up way more often. And Armored Hide is a very good defensive one. So later on we'd optimize this in the in-game guide for damage, but overall this will give you enough damage and defense so you'll absolutely blast all the way through to level 60, no problem at all, and then you can just go off into the end-game guide. So mercenary wise, I pretty much on all my leveling builds take the same, because I really like, even though Subo is a very popular hired mercenary choice for the map pack and the access to crit damage or damage over time damage or any of these others, I prefer Variana because generally speaking, most builds really benefit from having more attack speed early on. Her Massacre sort of build up as you kill enemies gives you bonus movement speed, which is really nice for any class. Just movement speed is one of the main things that will slow you down early on, so getting that for free, and she just gives you a bunch of attack speed, so I prefer her early on. You do change her out in the end game, but for start I just prefer her for starters, and I normally take her right here for my reinforcement with Bastion and on Injured, because this is like a panic button if you do happen to become injured, and it might just keep you alive. So I tend to prefer taking those. This is the same for all 3 variants, and if you've unlocked these already, you'll be able to equip them from the get-go, so I would highly recommend doing that. It's in the starter tips down in the in-depth explanations. Okay, moving on to the aspects and gear stats. I probably won't go through all the gear stats here, guys, because there's quite a few of them. But if you click on the gear stats tab here on the build guide, you'll see that there's 3 stats here on all the items, mainly dexterity, maximum life, attack speed, thorns focused, with a few outliers. If you go to the first variant, you'll notice that there's only 2 stats on all these items. This is because this is what you would likely find in a season start. The build is designed, as I said before, to be viable from the get-go at a season start, and then as you go up the variants, you'll notice it starts going into 2 and 3 stats and so on. And for the aspects, if you go back over here, none of these, as I said before, are required for the build to function. A lot of these are drop only. You'll just have to see which ones of these you can drop. I do say here that if you are lucky enough to get the Tormentor's aspect, aspects of Might, Juggernauts, and aspects of Disobedience, you pretty much just nuke the whole leveling stage, because Might, Juggernauts, and Disobedience pretty much cap your armor, give you a crazy amount of damage reduction, and Tormentors means when you poison the enemies, they just run towards you and die. It's insane for leveling, but Tormentors is rubbish in the end game. In terms of where you can get these aspects, if you go to the in-depth explanations at the bottom, you'll notice that there's an aspects section, and it shows here that you can get your Might, your Disobedience from Dry Steppes and Kegistan, and where you can get them from. And you can also get Rapid Aspect from Buried Halls, which is very, very good early on, because that gives you a phenomenal amount of attack speed, which is very, very good on this build. The more attack speed, the better. The rest of them are drop only, so you'll just have to get lucky and hope you drop them. But if you get those 3, you will absolutely blast, and those are controllable. Or you can just play without them. That is fine too. You will be able to blast the whole 1 to 60 without any of these. These just make your life better. And if you don't find these and you find something else that can make do in the meantime, by all means use those as well. In terms of runes, as I've said before, we're pretty much only using blue runes here, and blue runes for blue magic for everything. These are things that you can get during the level 1 to 60. You might get some yellow runes later on around level 45 onwards, and if you do, brilliant, use them if they are useful to you. But if you use these ones, you will blast the whole 1 to 60 process. So Moni and Ton here is insane for this build. Your Rock Splitter is a mobility skill, so every 2 casts of that, you're going to rain down hell with a whole load of sorcerer meteorites, and it pretty much just bombs the whole screen. You will just absolutely nuke the leveling process. This is pretty much your damage. You can go full defense with these 2 runes if you're lucky enough to get them early on, and you will just blast all the way through. In terms of the second set of runes, Seer for the whole amount of offering generation that you'll get, and this is just to give you more movement speed. You may not need the Qua rune here later on because shifting power and Horadric spells, but this will give you a decent amount of movement speed if you don't have that shifting power powder arcana, and then you can just replace it for crit chance or anything else you feel will be useful to you in the meantime. In terms of Horadric spells, I liked Astral Pillar because this taunted enemies, bringing them together. That makes Rock Splitter work a lot better because of the way Rock Splitter has an area of effects on it. And then on top of that, I use Nebulous Extract for leveling just for the extra damage reduction. But feel free to stick on any of the others. The Lightning one will give you AoE, the Poison one will give you more poisoning damage, and so on and so on. So maybe the Poison one here would work very nicely as well in terms of giving you that passive Thorns damage while you're leveling. It really depends what you prefer, but the damage reduction here will probably just make your leveling a bit smoother. In terms of the Arcanas, Jagged Bramble, which I don't think this will scale in the endgame very well, but this will do very well early on, so your Catalysts doing Thorns damage will just pretty much just annihilate things probably. Shifting Powder for an insane amount of movement speed early on, and Bottled Wind for extra barrier gen, that will just give you an extra layer of defense as well. In terms of gems, I haven't put one in the weapon because that's where we generally put the runes. But if you do need to put one in there, you can put in any of the ones that might scale your damage, whatever is useful to you, vulnerable damage or whatnot. In terms of the armor, emeralds for dexterity, this just scales your damage on Spiritborn. And then I've taken diamonds on all of the jewelry, but you can honestly put in any of the individual resistances as well if you feel that would be useful to you. Just take whatever helps make you tankier in the resistance area, because it's easier to get armor on Spiritborn than it is resistances earlier on, and this will just help you out a whole bunch. Okay, so that's it for the build guide, guys. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'll leave the build guide link in the description, so be sure to check that out. I'm really excited to see how the Thorns builds play out during Season 9. It was a whole load of fun during Season 8, a whole load of fun in any time I played before then, and it should be way, way better this season because of the new buffs to uniques and such. So I hope some of you have a good time playing the Thorns builds, whether it's this one or another one. and I'll see you out there, guys. Keep blasting, keep safe, and see you in the next video.